All right, hey guys. So I'm going to be going over the experiment with you. I know that for a lot of you, your MyNG Connect account hasn't actually started working yet, uh, but it will pretty soon. We are working on it. So I'm just going to pull it up here real quick. Um, that way, hopefully, you can kind of have some sense of following along. Okay. We read this the other day. I don't normally wear glasses. These are just what's called blue light glasses. They help the light of the computer screen. I've been finding that my eyes are very tired and I have a headache at the end of the day from all the computer screens. I'm used to books, yo. I don't know what to tell you. I love books, but these computer screens are quite a bit. So I've got my textbook here, and you've got it up here so you can follow along if you want. You were supposed to read this on your own the other day, but let's go ahead and go through this. The Experiment by Martin Raim. We read about Harry Houdini and how he escaped from being trapped. So we're going to see if a person can escape from being trapped. All right, so there was no way out. I'll move my microphone here. Hopefully that'll be a little bit closer. There was no way out. The walls of his cell were built of thick cement blocks. The huge door was made of steel. Steel is a metal. Like I've got my filing cabinet here, so it's a big, thick door made of metal. The floor and ceiling were made of concrete, and there were no windows. The only light came from a light bulb that was covered by a metal shield. So that just means like kind of think of like metal bars that would go around a light bulb hanging down from the ceiling, something that's going to go around it. There was no way out, or so it seemed to him. He had volunteered to be part of a scientific experiment and had been put in the cell to test the cleverness of the human mind. The cell was empty, and he was not allowed to take anything into it. But he had been told that there was one way to escape from the cell, and he had 3 hours to find it. He began with the door. It stood before him, huge and gray. The 3 large hinges on the door were riveted into the wall and could not be removed. The door itself seemed too big for the small cell, and for a minute he wondered if he had been put up first and the rest of the cell built around it. So here's what's happening to our character. We don't know the character's name yet, but he's gone into this room. Think of it as a jail cell, a tiny little room with cement walls, cement ceiling and floor, no windows, and just one big, thick, solid metal door. Right? Riveted means it's attached to the wall. So basically, locked in a box. And the experiment is that he is being told, find a way out. Try and escape. You can escape in 3 hours. And after 3 hours, we will let you out. Okay, let's see if you can do it. So finally, he turned away from the door and looked around. He tried pushing against the cement blocks to see if any of them were loose. He searched the floor for a trap door. Then he glanced up at the ceiling. The shield! The shield around the light bulb! His mind raced. The metal shield could be used as a tool, the tool he needed. He had found the way to escape. He moved under the shield and looked closely at it. One good strong pull would free it, he decided. He reached up, grabbed hold of it, pulled, but the shield stayed attached to the ceiling. He grabbed the shield again, twisting as he pulled. He felt it rip and fell to the floor, clutching his treasure. The shield was cone-shaped and had been fastened to the ceiling by 3 long metal prongs. Prongs are like, think of like a fork, and it's got the little different parts of it, kind of like tiny little parts that be wrapped around it. These prongs were sharp, but they were not strong enough to cut through steel or concrete or cement. He felt a hopelessness creep over him. He could find no use for the shield as a tool. The shield was not what he needed to get out. Then he had a brilliant idea. True, the metal prongs of the shield could not cut through the steel door or the concrete floor or the cement blocks in the wall. But the prongs might be strong enough to dig out the mortar that held the cement blocks in place. He pulled off one of the prongs and scraped hard at the mortar. The mortar crumbled into powder. He could loosen a couple of the cement blocks, then push them out and escape. So what you see here, if this is a brick wall, the mortar is the tiny stuff that goes between it, the two bricks. You've probably seen someone building a wall. They put the wall down, they take the mortar mix and plop it down and straighten it out and put the next brick down. So the mortar, so he's scratching the mortar between the bricks. If he could remove enough mortar, he could loosen a couple of the cement blocks and push them out and escape. He selected 2 blocks near the door and set to work. The prong, it's going to take a few minutes. I'm recording. Yeah, I'm recording a video. So it's going to be a few minutes. Trying to get ahead. He selected 2 blocks near the door and set to work. The prong dug into the mortar and set it flying out in a steady stream. The prong was just what he needed. Now he was sure he would escape. But his hand made a sudden, careless twist, and the metal prong broke into 2 useless pieces. At first, a wave of anger stunned him. Then he remembered that the shield had 2 more prongs. He pulled off another prong and went back to work. He decided he must be more careful. Nothing must go wrong. There was still plenty of time left. Soon, he had chipped out 4 inches of mortar, but the jagged edges of the cement blocks had torn the skin off his knuckles. His hands were bleeding from a dozen burning cuts. His back and shoulders hurt from the strain of working in one position. The mortar dust blew into his eyes and down his throat. The work dragged on slower and slower. So think about this. He's just trying to scratch out this tiny little, and the dust is in, and his shoulders are hurting, and his knuckles from against the cement bricks as he's trying to dig in between, and they're bleeding. He's sore and he's tired, and one broke, and so he's on to his second one out of 3. Suddenly, the second prong broke. For a minute, he welcomed the excuse to stop working, but the thought of failure sent him back into action. He pulled off the 3rd and last prong and went to work again. He was a man who did not like to lose. He had to win. The work dragged on. He became numb to the pain in his hands, to the ache in his shoulders. His fingers moved blindly, and his attack against the mortar grew weaker and weaker. At last, he broke through. He had dug out enough mortar so that now he could see light between the cement blocks. I suppose I can do this here. Sorry. With a spurt of new energy, he chipped away at the rest of the mortar. Of course there was a way out. He had found it, hadn't he? He had proved that a clever mind could solve any problem. That's how he had done it, with his own cleverness. At that instant, the 3rd prong snapped in his hand. He stared at the useless pieces. Then, in a blind rage, he slammed his fists against the wall. Ugh! Behind him, the door of the cell opened slowly. His time had run out. His part of the experiment was over. He was not allowed to talk about the experiment or about his plan of escape. However, he was sure that he could have escaped. He was convinced that he almost had. Actually, he had not even come close. The shield had been put around the light bulb only as a shade for the light. The metal prongs were not meant to be used as a tool. The man had been clever, but he had let his cleverness sidetrack him. If he had not been so quick to use the shield as a tool, if he had not spent all his time chipping out the mortar, And if he had not stopped searching the cell, he might have found the real way out. He might have discovered that he could have left the cell as easily as he had entered, for the huge door had never been locked. All right, so here's this guy locked in a room, cement room. And he thinks, I'm so smart, I'll figure it out. And he tries pushing on the wall and he's looking for trap doors. And he gets the light and he pulls the shield down and uses it to try and dig his way out. And while he's digging, he's scratching up his hands and he's hurting and he's sore and he's tired. And all three of the prongs break and are useless to him. And in a blind rage, which means he's so angry it's like he can't even see. Like, I'm smart. I should be able to figure it out. I'm clever. But he didn't. So, what happened at the end? The door was never locked. You guys, all he had to do was walk over and go, whoop, open the door. It would have worked fine. Ah, what a great surprise ending. All right. So, hopefully you understood the story a little bit better. It was an experiment, and this man failed the experiment. He thought he could dig his way out. All he had to do was try the door. Sometimes we're a little too smart for our own good. Sometimes we just need to try the actual easiest way out. All right. Lots to talk about here, but I'm going to go ahead and end that for now. So, talk to you later.